Welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're turning our attention to Victor Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yes.
And, we all know the monster. But today we're really looking into the man behind the myth.
Right.
And to do that, we are going to really be focusing on Chapter 1 of the book.
Okay.
Where Victor really opens up about his childhood, which is long before all the mad science happens.
It's really fascinating because it's easy to get lost in the horror and the macabre elements of the story, but understanding Victor's origin story is crucial.
Right.
It's like finding that missing puzzle piece.
Yeah.
It helps us understand why he makes the choices he does and ultimately unlocks so much more of the novel's deeper themes.
And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this deep dive.
Looking deep.
So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
So the scene is set in Geneva, and Victor's family, they're not just well off. They're like practically royalty.
The 1%.
Like generations of politicians, highly respected, successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And this detail is so important because it speaks to the immense privilege Victor is born into.
Oh,
he has access to education, resources, opportunities that most people during that time could only dream of.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost like he was handed this blank check for his ambitions.
That's a great way to put it,
Yeah.
But it's not all about wealth and status, right?
Right.
Because Victor makes a point of saying how loving his parents were and how they instilled in him, this really strong moral compass and this thirst for knowledge.
And, this is where we really start to see that influence of the Romantic era.
Yeah.
We have to remember that this was a period that was just captivated by nature, human emotion, and really that belief in, the power of human potential.
Yeah.
And Victor's upbringing is like a perfect embodiment of those ideals.
Absolutely. And he even, travels all over Europe with his family, soaking up these new experiences like a sponge. And then we get to the story of how his parents met.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not your typical love story.
No, not at all.
It's so interesting.
Shelley's really clever here because she's weaving in these themes of compassion and social responsibility from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So Victor's father, who, is known for his integrity and his strong sense of justice, he learns that his friend, Beaufort, has fallen into poverty and fled to Lucerne basically in shame.
Oh, wow. So he kind of went off the grid because of money troubles.
Pretty much, yeah. He had too much pride.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Victor's father, driven by, his sense of duty, he spends months searching for this friend.
Wow.
He finds Beaufort ill and basically destitute, takes in Beaufort's daughter, Caroline, and eventually marries her.
It's like a real testament to his character.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a love story that's really built on this deep sense of empathy and moral obligation.
Yeah, and Caroline just seems incredible.
She is.
As incredible as her husband.
She really is. I mean, despite facing, immense hardship, Caroline shows this incredible resilience and resourcefulness that I think we see echoed in Victor's own character later in the novel.
Absolutely. And of course, there's that significant age gap between Victor's parents.
Yeah.
But, back then it was much more common than it is today.
Exactly.
And what's really important is, the depth of their connection. Victor's father saw in Caroline this strength of character, a spirit, a worthiness that really deeply influenced Victor.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so then we get to the arrival of Elizabeth Lavenza.
Ah, yes.
This is where things get really good.
Here come the themes of destiny and these chance encounters that Shelley's so good at.
Yeah. And so Victor's parents, they're on a trip to Italy, and they come across this family struggling in poverty. And they're with all these children.
Right.
But there's one child who stands out.
She's radiant.
Yeah. And she's described as this radiant, almost angelic being.
Almost celestial.
Yeah. And Victor's mother is just instantly captivated by her.
Of course, and Elizabeth's beauty is captivating.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. It's her gentle nature, this air of innocence that really makes her stand out.
Yeah.
And we find out that she's an orphan, the daughter of a Milanese nobleman and a German mother who sadly died in childbirth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty tragic backstory.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, her father was this political activist who was fighting for Italian liberty,
Sure.
but he ended up imprisoned, and so that left Elizabeth completely destitute.
It's like fate intervened to bring her into Victor's life.
It really does. The circumstances surrounding her arrival have this almost preordained quality to them.
Yeah.
And, this early exposure to this idea of destiny could even foreshadow
Oh, yeah.
Victor's later attempts to control life and death through science.
Right.
It's like he's trying to wrestle control from fate itself.
It's a really fascinating connection.
Yeah.
And so Elizabeth gets adopted by Victor's family,
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a soulmate to Victor, even though they refer to each other as cousin. But, Shelley's very intentional with her language here.
Yes.
The bond between them is clearly something much deeper.
Very profound, transcends those typical familial ties.
For sure, and everybody adores Elizabeth. Victor even says at one point that he felt all the praise that Elizabeth received was like a reflection of his own worth.
Wow.
So they're inseparable.
And, this intense bond and that recurring theme of destiny,
Yeah.
they're going to play a huge role as we go deeper into the novel.
Oh, absolutely.
It sets the stage for so much of what's to come, all of Victor's future actions and decisions.
Exactly. So we've established so far that, Victor is born into this world of privilege.
Yes.
Instilled with this strong moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this incredibly deep connection to Elizabeth.
Right.
It's not a bad start to life.
A privileged start.
Yeah, a very privileged start.
But remember, this is Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And peace and contentment, they rarely stay undisturbed for too long.
Oh, that is true.
It's true. Peace and contentment rarely last forever, especially in a story like Frankenstein.
Definitely not. But before we, get to all the doom and gloom,
Right.
there's this one crucial element of Victor's childhood we need to talk about.
Okay.
It's kind of subtle, but it's like planting a seed
Mm-hmm.
that grows into something really powerful and ultimately dangerous.
I think I know what you're getting at. Are you talking about his early fascination with natural philosophy?
Yes.
Particularly those early thinkers like Cornelius Agrippa, Paracelsus,
Those names,
Albertus Magnus.
they sound like they belong in some kind of secret society.
Right.
Who are these guys?
Well, they were alchemists, natural philosophers, real pioneers who were trying to unravel the mysteries of the universe.
Yeah.
But they delved into areas that traditional science kind of stayed away from,
Interesting.
even dabbling in the occult.
Oh, wow.
And remember, this was a time when science and superstition were really closely intertwined.
So Victor's reading these ancient texts. He's totally captivated by these figures who are pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell us about him?
Well, I think it reveals this burning curiosity that goes way beyond just conventional science.
Yeah.
He's drawn to the forbidden, to uncovering these hidden secrets.
Sounds like he wants to know what's behind the curtain.
Exactly. And there's a hint of ambition in there, too. This desire to unravel the mysteries of life and death.
Oh, for sure.
Even maybe a touch of arrogance. Like
Yeah.
he believes he can achieve anything, even surpass the limits of accepted knowledge.
And this is where his privilege comes in again, right?
Absolutely.
Because he has the time and the resources to pursue these kind of esoteric interests.
He does. Most people wouldn't even have access to these texts, let alone the time to study them.
Right.
But Victor's upbringing fostered this sense of exceptionalism.
Yeah.
He wasn't content with just learning. He wanted to discover,
To make his mark.
to innovate, to go further than anyone thought possible.
It's like that feeling we all have when we get really into something.
Yeah.
Like you want to learn everything about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think Victor's passion for natural philosophy,
Yeah.
however misguided it becomes,
Hmm.
it really reflects that universal human desire to understand, to explore the unknown.
But it's a reminder that even the most well-intentioned paths can have unintended consequences.
Oh, absolutely. The pursuit of knowledge, when it's not guided by ethics,
Right.
by
Right.
careful consideration, can have devastating consequences.
And so we've got young Victor. He's curious. He's ambitious. He wants to lock all the secrets of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also this other key influence in his life.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
His deep connection to nature.
Ah, yes. And here's where the romantic influence really shines through.
Oh, totally.
Romanticism celebrated the power of nature,
Mm-hmm.
saw it as both a source of beauty and this incredible force to be reckoned with.
So Victor spends his childhood exploring the Swiss countryside.
Right. Immersed in those landscapes.
Exactly. And he's not just observing nature.
No.
He's developing a real relationship with it.
He's experiencing both its beauty and its potential for destruction.
So he's seeing this duality.
Exactly, this awareness of nature's power to both create and destroy.
And of course, that becomes super important later on.
It does. It becomes central to his scientific endeavors.
It's like he internalizes this idea of nature as something to be reckoned with.
A force he wants to understand and ultimately control.
And Shelley is so smart. She's weaving all these threads together, these influences to
Yeah.
create this complex portrait of Victor.
It's like a tapestry.
Yeah. And let's not forget about destiny.
Right.
That
Yep.
sense of a preordained path that runs through his whole life.
It's a current.
Okay, so speaking of those, events that are kind of preordained,
Yes.
we have to talk about that warning sign we mentioned earlier, the potential dangers of unchecked ambition.
Right. And it feels particularly relevant today, don't you think? I
Absolutely.
mean, look around us.
Yeah.
Technology is advancing so rapidly.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that as we strive to achieve great things, to push the boundaries, we have to consider the ethical implications of our actions.
It's like we need to establish these ethical boundaries.
We do.
Because what happens when our ambition outpaces our wisdom?
Exactly. And Victor's story is like this cautionary tale,
It is.
reminding us that even the most brilliant minds can be blinded by their own desires.
But what about his family?
Yeah.
Are they worried about him?
Well, they exchange letters.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth, in particular, expresses her concerns. She urges him to take care of himself, to remember the importance of family and connection.
Right.
But Victor's too caught up in his work.
He's obsessed.
He's isolating himself,
From the people who love him.
both physically and emotionally.
And that isolation
Yes.
feels like another key factor in his downfall.
It is. It's like he's created this void in his life
Yeah.
that only his obsession with science can fill.
And that void becomes fertile ground
It does.
for the darkness to come.
For the monster that will consume him.
So we left Victor kind of isolated and obsessed with his work. And we pick up with him heading off to Ingolstadt, which is this really prestigious university in Germany.
It was like the place to be if you were a serious scholar.
Exactly. And he goes there just eager to learn everything he can.
Of course.
But it's a big step, right?
Huge.
He's going from this, sheltered world of his childhood to being surrounded by these incredible thinkers
Leading scientists, philosophers, you name it.
and exposed to all these groundbreaking ideas.
Cutting-edge research, the latest theories.
So he's in this really stimulating environment.
A real melting pot of ideas.
And he wants to make his mark on the world.
Of course, he's ambitious, remember.
Right. But there's this shadow lurking,
Yes.
like a hint of the darkness to come.
It's always there, isn't it?
So it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
Well, no, not exactly.
What happens?
Victor becomes fixated on this idea of conquering death.
Oh, wow.
He wants to control life itself, to cheat death,
That's a pretty big goal.
to say the least. And this is where his ambition really starts to take over.
He's not just interested in expanding knowledge anymore.
No, it's become something much bigger and much more dangerous.
And Shelley really uses this to critique scientific hubris.
Yeah, she's showing how Victor gets so caught up in the how that he completely forgets about the why.
He's not thinking about the ethics of it all.
Not at all. He's blinded by his desire to achieve this impossible goal.
It's like he's got tunnel vision.
Exactly. He's lost sight of the bigger picture and the potential consequences of his actions.
So he's isolating himself even further,
Right, he's cut off from his family, his friends.
not listening to Elizabeth's concerns.
No, he's too far gone.
And it's this pursuit of knowledge without any moral compass
Without any thought for the consequences.
that leads to his downfall.
And this is something that's still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to remember that knowledge without ethics can be a dangerous thing.
So it's not just a story about a scientist creating a monster.
No, it's a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition.
About the need to consider the ethical implications of our actions.
Especially when it comes to science and technology.
This has been such a fascinating look into Victor Frankenstein's story.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does, and it makes you question those big ideas about life, death, and the role of science.
And I think that's exactly what Shelley wanted us to do.
To keep asking those tough questions.
To never stop questioning the world around us.
And to remember that even the most brilliant minds can make terrible mistakes.
It's a lesson we should all take to heart.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Frankenstein.
It's been a pleasure.
And make sure to check out the next episode where we'll be taking a closer look at the monster itself.
Can't wait.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those brain cells buzzing.